you are watching the development of ceasefire between Gaza and Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu met with President Trump in Washington DC to discuss a potential 60 days Gaza ceasefire involving phased Israeli withdrawal, hostages exchanges and increased humanitarian aid despite signs of hope. Internal political resistance persistence. Sir, my question would be, why 60 days? Why not for longer time? Why not forever?
Yeah, we would expect that these 60 days maybe it goes on indefinitely, but what they are probably trying to do is that set a timeline so that the other party can also react within that. Remember the 60 days time limit they gave to Iran also, So here, if basic question is that if Israel gets back their hostages, about 50 plus hostages are still missing or they are under captivity, then there is absolutely for Israel there is no justification to be there. They must withdraw, but that withdrawal also will take time because they are deployed in a fairly large numbers in various. So I will only hope that these three parties who are involved, the Hamas and Israel, Netanyahu's government in Israel and United States, if they agree and if the hostages are released and the hostilities are seized by Israel, then there is absolutely no reason for this fighting to continue, because that was the whole thing. If you remember this present phase of the hostility started from October 22, I think.
23, October 7, 23.
October 7, 2023. So it has been nearly 2.5
yes, sir.
years, and nearly 100,000 Israelis have died, and Palestinians have died and injured, and virtually Gaza has been razed to the ground. And all these things, it started with that Hamas attack on various Israeli settlements and also on the streets and isolated villages, where they lost about 2,000 plus on that day and few thousand hostages and others. So, and that it continued, they attacked, and by now many hostages they have recovered. Some hostages have been handed over in phases and some have died also in captivity. So it is down to now about 50 plus. So if that is done, I think it will be a good step forward, because after all, every hostility in the history of mankind ends up in a peace deal somewhere. So this one at least will be a temporary, if there is a temporary relief for the Gazan people, and then the aid package comes in, and if there is a rebuilding program, then there is some hope.
Ukraine and Russia war and defense support. The US has announced a resumption of weapons shipments to Ukraine amid intense Russian assaults in Kharkiv and Odessa. Reports also highlight the targeting of Russian warhead facility by Ukrainian forces. This is very interesting news. On the other side, Ukrainian President Zelensky is considering a coalition of willing meeting to bolster air defense support after Russian strikes hit a chemical plant linked to drone manufacturing. What is the updates, or what is your observation where this war is going on? Because NATO is a kind of silent partner now.
Ukraine war is going on nowhere, actually going on nowhere. It started way back in 2014 when Russia occupied
Crimea.
Crimea was historically part of Ukraine, mind you, and it was historically part of Russia. Nikita Khrushchev, who was actually Ukrainian by origin, he gave it back to Ukraine, but it continued to remain, because after it broke up, the Soviet Union broke up, the whole of the Russian Black Sea fleet and everything is there in Crimea, so they couldn't have done anything without it. So they occupied in 2014, but the main war started 2022. Okay, I think it was in October 2022, and by Russian invasion. And at that time, Putin thought that he is going to finish this war very quickly. And in fact, on the day he attacked, on the same evening, his paratroopers were in Kiev, and they were supposed to join up with the other forces, coming both by land and by the air. But the way the Ukrainians resisted and cut off these forces, ultimately now you see it has been about 3 years the war is going on,
Yes,
and
sir.
enormous loss of lives on both sides, lives and properties, and the battlefront has not changed much. You are actually fighting a First World War, trench warfare, which happened in 1914 to 1918. Now in 2025, after more than 100 years, we are fighting the same trench warfare. The battlefield is not changing. But both for Russia and Ukraine, it has been a tremendous loss of a whole generation. People have died, and especially Russia, you see, have suffered so much that now they are recruiting foreign soldiers. They have recruited soldiers from North Korea. First of all, they recruited soldiers from all their underdeveloped, Caucasus region, mostly Muslims. They had gone, they have died, and in fact, they are now recruiting from Bangladesh, and some have already died over there. This shows that the tragedy of a great, if we are talking about Soviet Union, and the same thing is, Ukraine compared to Russia is even less populated and size and everything. And what has happened, the elites of both Russia and Ukraine, the elite children who would have been eligible to go to battle, they have all migrated to the West. They are now studying outside. It is the poorest of the poor who go and die in war.
Sir, from my curiosity, I have a question to you. When in 2014 we have seen Mr. Putin took only 72 hours to invade Crimea. He took only 4 days to invade Georgia. Why he is taking too much time to declare win on Ukraine? Why?
Now, he can't declare victory. He can, if he wants to be satisfied with what he has got, then there has to be a ceasefire. But as I told you, on the day one, when he launched the attack, you see, he had hundreds of tanks rolling in. But the way the Ukrainians resisted with their javelin anti-tank weapons, they just cut them off, you see, and the main forces could not join it. Since then, with the advanced technology, which the NATO has provided, they have been able to push them back, or at least hold them at an enormous cost. But now, and last of all, what they did showed the Jordanians, the Ukrainians, they took the drones, smuggled them through the border, went on various Russian bases, even deep inside Siberia, the Irkutsk, which is more closer to the Chinese border, rather than they launched them simultaneously, and many of them autonomously with artificial intelligence. These were unheard of, and they have destroyed a large part of their bomber forces which were deployed over there. So you see, yes, NATO, the Western European countries have helped them, Americans have helped them, but I would say the strength of the defense of they want to defend whatever, that is been enormous. But there is also a social price. When in 1975 I was in Soviet Union, we trained. At that time, nobody ever thought that this country will break up, and because Russia and Ukraine, Russia is the largest state, and the Ukraine is the second largest state, and very developed. Both of them are very, and there were enormous a lot of intermarriages, and they were together.
Yes, sir.
Now I only wonder that now that they are fighting, and fighting so brutally, what has happened to these families who are sort of connected by, these are a human question,
I understand, sir.
And they will have to pay a price. I only wish that the peace is restored and some sort of, you see, you can't have an overwhelming victory for Russians or not the Ukrainians. So, what I suggest is that the Crimea will remain with them, with the Russians, but with some adjustment of the border, especially on the right, on the eastern border, Donbas and others, which is mostly populated by pro-Russian people.
Yes, sir.
Let that be but another big thing, that is the red line. There must be an end to the NATO expansion, which was actually a reason why Putin's
You made a good full stop. The NATO's interest to include Ukraine with them has to be stopped. Then there will be a possibility to stop the war.